Greetings everyone, this is Lodrik. This is our game War in the Pacific Admirals Edition in our match against Dojo. Today we will check turn 38, means 19th and 20th February 1942. This will also mean that the second carrier fleet will arrive short to Colombo. And we will maybe see again air action over Rangoon and the upcoming invasion of Port Moresby. Last turn we make the bombardment, not very successful, but we try to soften up. And this turn normally we see the actual invasion attempt of the Japanese Navy forces. Navy Guard units. So we're catching some bases in the Philippines still and unloading additional unit source in Borneo. Most of this is only cleanup operations and fighting with some leftover Dutch base forces. Normally, an allied player will try to bring all his Dutch forces to Java or Sumatra and try to hold Batavia, Palembang or Surabaya. These are the three main bases normally. Are only important for the Dutch to hold as long as possible, and at the same time normally for the Japanese to capture them as soon as possible. So here we have a bombardment. So this is a night naval bombardment of Port Moresby. So two battleships, they are normally like 80% of all damage coming from the battleships. But the impact was not really important. Normally I hope to have here like 250 to 500 allied units destroyed, killed or disabled. But we also can make sure that firstly we hitting the supply hits. So supply hits normally always burns the base supplies. So Port Moresby is low on supplies or have even no supplies more left. Port does the same. Airbase and port I think is both only supplies. And to kill the port and also the airbase, more or less only make sure that there's no ship can dock, and also hard to operate any airplanes out of this, because land forces often normally you can, even if you have a bad battle and your units maybe gets damaged or partly destroyed, you can normally always bring them up easily. But airplanes and pilots are, for me, or ships, more vulnerable. So I don't want to lose anything here to any airstrike. So I only want to really make sure that the airfield of Port Moresby is really dead. And this is one of Dojo's submarines, but in deep water, and it's before March or April, so we cannot really kill the submarine, but we can scare it away and make sure it cannot really make an attempt to attack anything. Yeah. So now is the Amphibious Assault. So this is now the official landing operations, supported by two battleships and some light cruisers. Only to make sure that the counter battery fire. You can see that Dojo have 105 counter battery, because now the Australian units, they simply react to this invasion, say okay, they're coming, they're storming the beach, try to hit them, but I think most of these shells are still focused for the battleships. so nothing gets hit, and even if he hits something, like a battleship will not care anything of this battery fire. We can disable some units, okay. Nothing more happened. Most important is that our units can arrive at the beaches without any transport blow up or like this. Small losses are typical. Most of the invasions over beaches always lose some stuff. Even if there's no enemy and you make loading or unloading over the beach, there's always a chance that units get lost by accidents. So amphibious loading, unloading have always some risk, but it's part of your calculations, the war. So this is, I think, then the support fire. We still unloading troops, or we unloading supplies and like this. So you can see now Dojo have much less reaction, only 21 guns, because this is now the support action, and it's more real invasion. A little damage here, little damage there, but nothing really important, nothing critical. You must kill them hundreds of units to see an impact. And here's other Dojo submarine, and they try to use their Mark 14s, and again no really impact. Yeah, why not? If the Americans won't use these shitty torpedoes, it's their choice. And here's Dojo found our submarine, and we try to avoid the attack, and similar to what happened just now near Rabul. This is the same now near Perth. This time only he hunt our submarines, and it is also not working. So we get the scout information. Here we can see that we make a hit on a destroyer, reported hit. If it's a true hit, I'm not so sure. And we just lost one of our scout planes. But this is not to avoid. And most important is normally that hopefully there will be no airstrike on our carrier fleet. It's hard to surprise Dojo now. I mean, he know we was in Bombay, and the way from Bombay back to Singapore is simply, we must pass Colombo. It's only the question is if we find something there. Okay, and this is the first time I think we use the zeros here to sweep the air of Rangoon. And we're diving on the Hurricanes, so we get normally the speed advantage. But there's another issue, and it's you have always or the air battle is related, of course, to the airframe and the pilot skills. This is the one stuff, and every airframe have also, of course, different technical parameters, like how fast is the airplane, and how easy it can maneuver in what altitude. And most of the Japanese Oscars, the Zeros, they are all low level fighters, so they are all good up to 20,000 feet, but over 20,000 feet they really don't operate more so well. Of course, the same is true for the British airplanes, but you can more or less say at low altitude up to 10,000, 15,000, the Zero is much more maneuver than the Hurricane. But at a high altitude, at 30,000 or 25,000 and higher, the maneuver values are similar. But the Hurricane have armor, more guns, and I think the speed is similar. So if you go with very high altitude with the Zeros and try to fight the Hurricanes in a high altitude, you have the advantage if you are on the top that you get this dive bonus. But once the dive bonus is over, then the advantage is normally on the Hurricane side, because if they have the same altitude, they have the same speed, the same maneuver. The Hurricane have simply more guns and they have the protection. So I think that this was maybe... It's always a gamble. You always gamble, like if you go high, I have a first strike, and if the first strike is successful, then it's fine. But if the enemy pilot can avoid this first attack and you get a real dogfight, then the Zeros are in the disadvantage in this high altitude. I mean, we can see that we kill some Hurricanes, but we also get a little killed here by Dojo, his air forces. It is not a one-sided battle, it's let's say, compared to the rest of the war or the days we had before, it is a tough battle, that for sure. And we can again see that normally the hope was that I bring the Zero here, that the Zeros have more the hit kill. That they, even if the Hurricane has this armor, but the 20mm guns, if they hit the enemy airplane, that will really blow up the airplane. But we can still see here that often we make the hit, but still the Hurricane can escape. This is also related to the how to say this? This is a design issue. The Zero have two light machine guns and two cannons, 20mm cannons. And the 20mm cannons are more or less a hit, they kill, or damage very critical. But the 20mm guns are wing mounted, and the light machine guns are center mounted. And if you check the statistic of the airplane, then you can see that the light machine guns, because they are center mounted, they are very stable. They have a very high chance to hit something, but they're making nearly no damage and they cannot really penetrate any armor. So if we hit with this light machine guns, we will maybe damage the airplane, but especially with armor like this Hurricanes, you only make very, very little damage. But you get the feedback, yeah, it's damage, but not more. But the 20mm guns, with they making the real damage, they are wing mounted. And if something is wing mounted, the wing is always it's an unstable platform. It's because the airplane is flying and maneuver, so everything is bending, and so the 20mm guns never really will shoot where you expect the bullets to go. So the chance to hit with the 20mm guns is simply less. if you have the same gun center mounted, you normally have more chance to hit something. But there is no option to choose this, because this is really related to the airframe design. And these Zeros, they have always this wing mounted 20mm guns. There's no way around this. So because you cannot change it, you have to accept it. It is like it is. You only can see that later there are some other airplanes, they will normally have the same gun, but center mounted. And then you can see that the chance to hit is nearly double. I think wing mounted, this 20mm gun have now a 25 or 27% chance to hit something. But if you make it, I think center mounted, it's like 45 to 55%. Even if it's the same gun. So this can also be a part of your calculation which kind of airplane you want to use. And why maybe some airplanes are working well and why not. They're so different. This is a little complicated. I mean, in reality, this is even more complicated. The question is, why you want to install the 20mm gun wing mounted and not center mounted? Yeah, wing mounted is much easier. You have much more space. You can transport more ammunition. You have more rounds to use. If you make a gun all in center mounted, there's not much space. There's the engine. If you try to bring all together, the engine is also hot. Because the engine is hot, your barrels can maybe let's say this, because if everything gets warm and the barrel gets warm, if you use the gun, then you also lose normally accuracy. And all this, or you have malfunctions and blocked ammunition on all this. So there's always a reason why you do something like this. And this is always a compromise. Here in this game you also have sometimes guns jams, and if they have a gun jam, then the airplane always must return. Yeah, and now we can see the end of the battle. I think now we don't have any dive bonus more, so we're battling now at very high altitude, I don't know, maybe 25,000 or like this. And this is now the good time of the Zeros is over, and the Hurricanes can really strike back now, and we have some trouble here. So maybe to use the Zeros at high altitude attack makes sense if you know that you have the numbers. Because if you have simply high numbers of airplanes, then you maybe dive all your airplanes on this small numbers of defenders, and then you can make sure that before, you have enough airplanes to finish the enemy before all your planes finish their dive. But now we don't. There are so many British airplanes now that all our 45 Zeros make the dive, but there's still over a dozen left. And now we're getting more and more trouble here. And also, because these are Hurricanes to be dropped, and these are British veterans, they all fight against the Germans for maybe a long time, so they all have experience. So you can say more or less these are now the best pilots Dojo have, or at least the second best pilots. Maybe the best pilots are at the American carrier units, but these are very similar stuff. We have gun jamming. But Dojo is also running out of fuel and running out of ammunition. Now you can see that the Hurricane is starting to diving on our Zeros. And at the end I'm maybe now happy that this coming close to the end. because the kill ratio was really not in our favor more. At least maybe we have a kill ratio of 1 to 2, so means maybe today we lost double the numbers of the Hurricanes. At the end of the day, we really can check the true numbers, because there's often too much fog of war. Because I don't think that we only killed 2, I think there was at least 3 or 4. But we will see. Officially this is now 5 to 2. So this is of course the worst ratio. I mean, maybe this is a ratio you can accept if your pilots are only just so. And the enemy pilots is good. But yeah. So this was now a high altitude sweep, 31,000 feet. So, and in this altitude, the Zero is really not more well. It's really Hurricane and Zero, I think they have really the same values. We can check this also later maybe. But yeah. And the Dojo was normally at ground patrol altitude is 20,000. Yeah. Okay, this is now the second carrier division. We are just here arriving near the source edge of India, and we're making this long range sweep. I always do this, and I think this makes sense, or at least for me it makes sense, to always send one, or depending how many carriers you have, but at least I send some fighters out to sweep to lure up the defender cap. Firstly, this is it's a fighter against fighter, and at least the fighters have a chance. Whatever Dojo have here, it will fighter against fighter. If you bring immediately fighter escort with bombers, then you have the maximum cap, because every time you make a strike on the base, the cap start with 100%. But every attack after this first attack, there's less airplanes left for Dojo. So even if we maybe not kill here too many units, even if if Dojo have here 10 airplanes and all 10s will survive the first battle, even if this happens, at the second strike from this 10 airplanes only 8 can take off, because 2 or 3 are maybe having landing accidents, or they have other damage and they must go to maintenance, and they're simply out of action at the same day. And the attempt, or the final reason, is I sweep first to lower the cap, so that if the day that the second attack or the third attack with the real bomber force is coming, that our escort fighters have a more easy task to protect the bombers. Because a fighter at the end can only kill enemy airplanes in the air, but not really much more. You need the bombers to really do the damage, attack the airfield, attack the port, sunk the ships, and like this. Yeah, you also can see that these are the 2A drop. So, and before we had the 2B, but I think the main difference is only the armament. So I think this guy has 6 machine guns and the 2B have maybe 8 machine guns. It is still all very crazy. But of course, the advantage is if you have so many guns that you really only you don't need the skills to really bring your airplane in the best position to hit something. You only roughly say, okay, the enemy is coming okay, I shoot now for 2 seconds and then I bring so many bullets out. It's just like a shotgun and compared to a rifle. If you want to use the 20mm guns, you really must bring the enemy in the real right position, because the 20mm guns, you don't have so many rounds, and the round is, or the output is so slow. You need a clear target to attack. You cannot make it like this Hurricane stuff. Anyway, this is official, also the same ratio like in Rangoon, nothing crazy, but it will lower the cap of Rangoon. Cylon. Now Oscar's coming. Will Oscars have more or less the same issue like the Zeros? They're also low altitude fighter. And compared to the Zero, the Oscar is slower. And this is normally even more, have better values at low altitude. So if you go with a Zero on high altitude, and then you're dropping down, then it is not the best, but maybe it is acceptable. But the Oscar, I think, is really not working, because it's even slower than the Hurricane. It's and it's have really much better values at low altitude. So Oscar, I would simply really never go over 15,000 feet more, because at 10 to 15,000 feet, the Oscar is really, if you have a good pilot, you don't have any armor protection, and you are also not very fast, but your maneuver skills are really high. You can outmaneuver normally all allied fighters at very low altitude, but this only works if your pilots have the skill to use this. Because if the pilots have no skills, all this technical equipment will not help you more. So we can see we're diving, we're coming from behind. This is normally so far okay, but we don't get the kill. At least now. The other question is maybe but this is a long time strategic thinking, is can the Japanese outproduce the Allies in these early months of the year? Or I mean, outnumber them, let's better say this. Because even if you have here now a better kill ratio, let's say normally for me 1 to 1 is a minimum, but even if you lose double the airplanes than the Allies, it's a question, you can do this maybe for a short time, simply because maybe the Allies, they have some equipment, but after Dojo lost here maybe 100 fighters, and there's simply nothing left. And the Japanese, if they focus all the fighter air force, you can here maybe get here 300-400 fighters together. And then if you even say, okay, I killed 100 of Dojo, Dojo killed 200 of my, then I have still 200 left, but Dojo have nothing left. It's a question if you want to go for this. The problem is really that this kind of thinking is only working maybe up to April or May. Latest in June of 42, this is no way more, because I think in June there's still the Allies starting to produce too much stuff. And the Japanese industry, even if you try, there's limitations. Maybe you can produce the airframes, but you will not more produce the pilots for this. So you can maybe do this for the defense. If you want to defend your own stuff, and you kill the Allies 1 to 1, or you're losing double the Allies, their planes and the allies, but you are on your own base, then you can normally say, okay, we killed the pilots 1-1 and this is acceptable. Because the Japanese maybe can produce the airframes, but they can never really produce the pilots. But still, of course, I think it's a little... that is not the way I want to go. I want at least go 1-1 in the long run. And so far we normally did okay with it. We normally always kill better than 1-1. But today it looks like it's not the best day for pilots. But this is really related that at this high altitude, the advantage of the Oscars is simply gone now. Before, with the Flying Tigers and with the Buffalo, we can do this. But with Hurricanes 2, 2A, 2B, you cannot go more for high altitude attack. This is my conclusion. So 1-0 group, the first Oscar group, and this is now the second Oscar squadron attacking Rangoon. So you can see that I mount up around 80, 120, nearly, I think 130 fighters attacking Rangoon today, and try to lower the presence of British pilots here in this area. But I don't think it was really a success. I would more or less say this was a bad day for the Japanese army fighter pilots. The Zeros, I would still say it's okay, but the Oscars really had a bad day today. This was maybe the, I don't know if 19th February 42 was now a bad Friday, but it was at least I think the worst day of the army fighter pilots so far in the war. Too many airplanes are not coming back. Too many pilots are lost this day. But of course this makes the game interesting, that this can always shift from one side to the other side. At that time, like at the beginning, the Dojo don't have the experienced guys and you don't have the good airframes and we can kill them easily, at least if you set up your stuff correctly. Just now, the British arriving with high experienced pilots and new type of airframes, so these airframes are now better than our airframes, or at least I think they are better. And if you have also good pilots with similar skills and you are a defender, then you simply really can hold your ground. Also this high altitude attack will not work with the Hurricanes, so we must change our tactics soon. But at least we break the cap. So obviously we lost here 2 fighters again against the nothing. But there's nothing left, so at least we can say we dominate these guys. But if we want to pay the price for this, that is another question. So Colombo is here, and we see that there are some task forces in the at sea. Yeah, this is a typical. This has a broken unit, so mob up actions here, clean up. Sometimes success, sometimes just so. And this as a force is at least this unit. I'm not more sure if we really can catch them. And here we lost really one airplane now by flak. We attacking. So there must be some long range flak guns, because normally 8,000 feet is too high. But sometimes. But these are all light bombers. And bomber pilots are normally not so hard to train, because most of these bombers, they really only learn how to make ground attack, make airfield attack. It's the same skill. So they are easy to replace. You also have normally more army pilots and navy pilots, so and even the best Japanese bomber pilot cannot survive an enemy fighter attack normally, so it doesn't matter how good is his skills normally. Okay, and here this is this is maybe Dojo's I don't know, New Year is over, but somehow Dojo sent here some bombers and say, yeah, let's attack Bangkok. And I don't know what he want here, but he sent unescorted bombers, and I was a little surprised because he never really did this before so much. And so I have here some fighters, but I think they are normally on training missions or something like this. But yeah, the problem is now you can see this is the Oscar 1A and this is the Key 27B. Both have only 2 light machine guns. So, and I think these pilots are also not really skillful. They are training here. And now they're getting some live action training. The problem is only that this will be a very long battle, because our pilots are normally in training, so they don't have really they don't have skills, and they have not the main task to really intercept something, and I think that they have less ammunition or something like this. And this will be a very, very long battle. So I think we skip this now, because at the end we only will know that we damage a lot of these airplanes, but it will be an endless battle. And you can see that we only really stopped 4 or 5 bombers, because this our airplanes have only these light machine guns. You can even see that this is the air attack. Here's the attacker 9 and 9, but there is no defender, because there is no official cap units. These units are normally only they're scrambling, because they're making normally a training mission. And I think this is still always a part of why they are not so skillful and not so successful. But the main reason is also that our pilots or our airframes have no light machine. These light machine guns normally have a hard time to kill bomber. Even if it's shitty bombers, it's hard. And this is Dojo's B-17 long range attacks. And we get at least 1 Zero fighter here to intercept. But we can see that these B-70s are simply, they have so many hit points and they have armor, so that our pilot more or less he consumes all the bullets, but still he cannot stop this this B-17s. But we damage, at least we damage 3 times the airplane. So maybe, at least we force them maybe for maintenance, and we can later check if maybe there's some operational losses from Dojo. This is the second bomber formation. But again, I mean, these are more be only propaganda attacks, because the military, they have no real value. This is a little more dangerous because here there is something. The other bases, they have no equipment, but here he normally can attack now the oil fields or the refineries. If he damage this kind of installation, this will be, at the end, it will cost me supplies, and my industry output is temporarily reduced. But luckily he I don't know, he making a port attack. Okay, he hit nothing, luckily. Okay, and this is now the carrier fleet. The second carrier fleet is now have the order more or less making navy attack or naval attack. So find enemy task forces, like here's the destroyer. And you can see that our dive bombers are bringing in the... And you can also just saw this, that the ship is dead in the water. And this means normally, if a ship have no fuel left, then the ship is dead in the water. And if a ship have no fuel left, it can only move 1 hex per turn. Why the ship is dead in the water, you must ask Dojo. Because for me the only solution is that the destroyer running out of fuel. But why they running out of fuel 2 hexes away from Colombo, I don't know. And if the ship is dead in the water, have an impact if the ship can maneuver better, or I mean better not, but more worse, I don't know. The biggest problem is, last time I showed already, that we have no torpedoes left. So we really only can make this horizontal attack with our Kates now. And because this is the second carrier fleet, most of these torpedo bomber pilots only have training for torpedo attack, but not for horizontal attack. There's still not enough time to train this all at the same time. So I trained first pilots torpedo attack skills, and if this is done, you can say, okay, now you train bomb attack. So the Kates have a very, let's say, low efficiency to hit something, especially if it's a destroyer, because normally a destroyer can maneuver well, is fast, and is a small target. You can see that our bomb is always missing. But our dive bombers, they are of course the other time, because the dive bombers only train Navy bombardment. So this pilot must only learn how to drop the bomb. A torpedo bomber must learn how to use torpedoes, and after this he must learn how to drop the bomb. So these are different skills. But it's of course at the end, at least because this is a live action battle now, the pilots get their experience. Now we can see that the problem is that we have a lot of this Kate bombers and only 9 dive bombers, and the dive bombers more or less making the hits. We had here 4 bomb hits at the end. I don't know, I think from the 9 dive bombers we have 4 bomb hits, and it's a good ratio of nearly 50%. But all these Kates, they are more or less missing the target. But at the end, these 2 destroyers are more or less dead. Okay, so we are attacking now this fleet in the Hex of Colombo. So this is a navy attack or naval attack, air strike, but not the port strike, because this task force is outside of the port. And let's see if escort fighters can handle these hurricanes before we sweep already the base of Colombo. So the cap is already reduced, not more, I don't know, more 12 or 16, now it's only 4. So the first hurricane must already return. Okay, this is the most important normally. If you make this kind of strikes, you normally must kill the enemy cap. Important is that you get your bombers to the target. And now we can see that here is also destroyers. This is a Dutch destroyer, Van Gent. And this Kate is maybe from our fleet carriers. And the fleet carrier Kate bombers, they have both skills already at the maximum more or less. And then you have a higher chance to hit something. Yeah, Akagi. So Akagi is a fleet carrier. So this pilot, you can see, and he hit again. These pilots, they train both torpedo attacks and bomb attacks. But most of the others, they are new. They are from the support carriers, and they all have very low skills at the start of the war. And here we can see a second hit. So we lost 1-0. But we damaged both destroyers. Heavy fires, heavy damage. Normally they're dead. And if they're not dead, then they're out of action for a long time. Yeah. This second sweep comes a little late, so this was maybe more or less they fail. Because we had the first sweep, then we had this naval strike, and now this is second sweep. So of course it makes more sense to sweep second, and then make the naval attack. In that case, you have simply less enemy fighters in the air, so that your bombers will not suffer unnecessary losses. But we also checked. All carriers have good captains, and the admiral is also very skillful. So there is normally not much more I can do from my side. I give the best commanders. I let my pilots train, and that's all. And we just got a kill. So at least the Hurricane 2A we can kill 1-1 here. Okay. I think this is also now this zero of coming on a lower altitude level. I think they're running maybe at 15,000 or 20,000 feet, and not like 31,000. Okay. This looks much better normally. Ah no, here we also come at 31,000. But here we had the numbers. We had simply, I think, the numbers so that we still diving. We still make this first dive attack and have the speed advantage. And, or maybe these pilots are also not so great. So it's always a combination out of many things. And this was also, I think, fleet carrier fighters, so this is elite pilots. They all have experience of 70 or more. So more scouting. We still try to get rid of this Australian base forces in the jungle. So this means the 19th February is now nearly over. Still making an Amphibious Assault or support, but nothing happened here. Ah yeah, our cleanup operation. You can see that the Chinese forces have no attack value left. So they only running. You can also see that here are 3 headquarters. All have 3 star. So this is the lowest level of general normally, you can see. And at least 2 units give up and 4 running away. Ah, okay. But you can also, he is nearly no disabled, so all units are already disabled and now they're still breaking. So these units are really at the point of end of their existence. And I drive here some units up to take the base. We'll see if this is enough. If it's not enough, we block this base and only make sure that Dojo cannot run away. And now we take also this small outpost. Our units are only disabled and most of Dojo's stuff is destroyed. Here still Ambon, we still must wait for reinforcements and support. Last time we failed, so We still have over double the attack value, but it's not enough in this terrain to take the base. And you can also see that the attack value first looks okay for our 4 units compared what Dojo have here. But if you check these values, then you can already see a problem. Dojo have here 195 attack value and we have here 244. This is normally enough to hold the base, but we need at least double or normally triple the attack value to attack the base. Now we have normally only 1 to 1. So looks like that our 4 units will not be able to take the base. Because if we try this, we will maybe suffer high losses. But we will see the next days how this play out. Good, this is the end. Now we have... So we enter February 20th. Some bases are switching. Okay. Looks like we found an enemy task force. Ah, okay. So this is our battleship support formation. And you can see that I run always 2 heavy units with 4 or 6 destroyers normally. More destroyers make no sense, but less than 4 I would also not go. Only to make sure that if there's any submarines, to have a very high chance to avoid any of these torpedo attacks. But
Before we start the music, the Japanese High Command announced today that the Imperial Navy has achieved another great victory near Colombo, with the sinking of 2 carriers, a battleship, and numerous cruisers and destroyers.
So Tokyo Rose already informed us about this great victory here. And you can only see that this is a night engagement with 25% moonlight and very, very short range. So more or less we surprised the Allied ships. So these are 2 Dutch destroyers. And we come very close and very easily and mess them up in seconds, more or less. So this was not really a battle, this was only a slaughter. That's okay. If Dojo tries this with 2 destroyers, or maybe, I mean, it was the commanders of Dojo's forces. The American submarine tried to take on the Japanese destroyer, but this normally never really plays out. It's very hard for the submarine to really hit the destroyer. And now we try to get rid of the submarine, but this also not works. Not for us, not now. No, but not in deep water. So we can see that Dojo's submarine consumed 4 torpedoes, and if there's no torpedoes left, you have to return to the base. Yeah, on the same hand, we consume our anti-submarine equipment, and we also have to return to base. We all burn his supplies for nothing. Okay. here I start to, yeah, I make the decision that I maybe take this island change of the Dutch forces. Not that they are really important for me, but if I have them, then I know there's no enemy airport and scout planes left and or submarine base, and it's better to pick them up now because Dojo normally also don't have anything, so now I don't much worry that the Dojo is running here in much equipment. And I don't want to use any heavy equipment because all my heavy equipment is just busy in Port Moresby or in the Indian Ocean near Colombo. So the day so no Navy engagement more. Scouting. Ah, there's a task force. So we already see two different task forces. Okay, air missions. Now, before we was here northwest of Colombo, and now we are exactly 10 hexes normally away from Colombo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is simply the range of the dive bombers. The Japanese dive bombers can load the bomber and fly up to 6 hexes. So the maximum range to target for the carriers to operate them on high efficiency is normally 6. And I think the American torpedo bombers only have a range of 4. I think the dive bombers can go 5 or 6. So maybe the American and the Japanese dive bombers are similar with a range 6 or 5. But the Japanese torpedo bombers, they can go 7 with a torpedo and 9 with 2 bombs. And I think the Americans, they only can go 3 or 4. So there's a difference. And also the Japanese Zeros, they can go with drop tanks up to 11 easily and up maximum 14. And I think the American fighters, they can never go so far. So the range is at the beginning of the war for the first nearly 1 year with the Japanese. So the Japanese have long range strike capacity. This is an advantage the Japanese player maybe try to use. So you try to strike, of course, always at the maximum range if possible. So only to make sure that if there's a counter strike, the counter strike will be maybe at extended range, and then the chance of successful hit is lower because less bomb load. And if you hurt these enemy planes, then they have a very hard time to return to base. Bombing in China. Maybe in May, maybe not so early, maybe in June, I hope to get the Betty bomber, not the Betty bomber, I don't know more, what's it, Helen. Oh yeah, Helen. The army bomber calls Helen. And the Helen bombers simply have more bomb load and more range, more protection, everything is much better. But before we can start the production, I don't know. Official, I think the Helen 2A will enter production in October 42, so maybe I can start in June of 42, if I can push the R&D a little. Okay. So the first day of the invasion, or the second day of the invasion, Dojo had this more or less successful bomb run on our Navy Guard units, because we had no caps here. But I mean, little late, but still at least we arrived here. I bring you some, last time already, some Air HQ and some Zero fighters here. And these I think are the elite Zero fighters I have. These are the best land-based fighter pilots of all of Japan. They have more or less similar level than the carrier fighter pilots. But their squadron is still not... These Zeros, they can operate off this carrier, but they never get the training for this. So this is why they are land-based. But it's okay. First, you don't have so many carriers for all your Zeros, and you need them at sea and land. And this is now twin engine and one engine. These are light bombers and these are medium bombers, and this is now a very easy task for these pilots. I mean, there's no way that these airplanes have ever a chance. Normally the best they can do is try to run away. I think this will be only a very high kill number now for us. At least some, they don't return, so they don't give up. You can say this. If this is clever, I don't know. Because now they have the successful bomb attack, but because they don't give up, our Zeros come back on the attack position and they get rid of nearly everyone. So you can see that officially here are 18 bombers, and out of 18 bombers official are 13 dead. And if you kill 13 out of 18, then that is a bad day. So our fighter pilots in Rangoon more or less had a bad day, but our Zero pilots here in Java have a very good day. And it looks like there's even more coming. Okay. But again, the other question is what you want to do with these Dutch pilots. Ask Dojo, not me. I'm really not the ally player. I focus for the Japanese side and I learn the Japanese and I never play the allies. I understand the allies, yeah, but I really don't play them. Simply, this game lacks Japanese player. You always find 3 or 4 guys playing the allies, but only one guy playing the Japanese. So, and then the next question is you must find someone not only play the Japanese, you also must understand the Japanese, because you cannot play the Japanese like the allies. More kills. And this L212, I don't know if they're really bombers, because if you check here, I think they are more like scout planes. You can see that they load only 15 kilo bombs. I mean, 15 kilo is what is this? This is nothing. So even if they hit, they cannot really do any bad damage. So maybe these are more or less like a bomber recon. the Japanese also have this light bombers. They call them official bombers, but normally they have a camera installation, so they can make pictures at the same time as they make the bomb strike. So you get more or less accurate information about the situation on the ground, and at the same time you throw something like this on the ground and say, aha, I also attack you, ha ha ha, but it's meaningless. And here is Dojo's attack on Bangkok again. And we can see we have 42 nades in the air, of course for training. This is still the same. But 42 nades cannot stop 9 bombers. But at least we can damage many of them or destroy even. And 4 more. Okay. You also can see that last time they're coming together, but this time more or less Dojo's bomber pilots, they fail to fly together. They have the same task or the same target, but somehow the commanders don't agree to fly together. And if this is no good for this Blenheims, maybe, because my nade pilots was all low on ammunition or whatever, and so this Blenheim had a very light losses only compared to the first strike. And Dojo his B-17's attack on again, no damage. So we find some ships source of Cambodia. So maybe next turn we can try to bring our forces in a position to intercept this. Because we can see here's 1 hour task forces. And the scout planes of this task force more or less found these 2 units. So at the end of the turn I must normally try to intercept them and maybe get rid of them. And this is now the second day of this Battle of Rangoon, and I don't think that we will be more successful, but the only good stuff is today that simply there's not so many Allied planes left. Even if we don't destroy them, most of British airplanes I think they get damaged, and so they have to go to maintenance. And if they are not in the air, they cannot strike with or fight with our Zeros and Oscars. So I normally believe that today the battles of Rangoon are less active. It may be less bloody for us. Yeah, but even today we lost a 0. This is normally the second land-based 0 squadron the Japanese have. But they are still good pilots. But I would only call them, these are good pilots. The other guys in Java, that are elite pilots. These guys operate in China, but in China there was not much activity. So they don't have really so much experience. The other, in Java, these pilots, they're fighting in Malaya all the time. And they also fight with Java Air Force before. So they really have a lot of live action experience. Okay, so the cap of Rangoon is broken today. If this is okay, normally 1-to-1, I would say yeah. This you can afford. And we, at least at the beginning of the war, the first 6 months, maybe the Allies have a hard time to get reinforcements fast enough to the front line. So only 2 Hurricanes are left. Our Oscars are still diving. So long I did. This is the advantage, of course, of the high altitude. But I think every airplane can only make 1 dive. So naja. At least we break the enemy cap without any losses. Okay. This is now the port strike. You can see here the port. So this is not a navy strike. And there was no cap left, so we get rid of the enemy cap already. So the Oscar fighters have more or less nothing to do. Now you can see that we make a 250 kilogram bomb hit on the Prince of Wales. So the Prince of Wales escaped the Singapore capture, and now we make an 800 kilogram bomb hit. This is, of course, the 250 kilogram bomb hit will do normally no damage, maybe 1 damage point, maximum 2 damage points. But the 800 kilogram bomb, if it hits the target, we can maybe say it's make like 5 damage points or even more. Our dive bomber gets killed. But again, the main problem is now that most of our Kates, they are trained for torpedo attacks, not for bomb attack. Okay, now this is the second 250 kilogram, but no penetration. And again, deck hit armor, but only surface damage. Okay, so we have now 4 250 kilogram bomb hits on the Prince of Wales, but I think maybe there's one more. but never really penetrates the... okay. So yeah, we can see we make 6 bomb hits. Out of this 6 bomb hits, and this is the only problem you don't see in this combat summary, so we have 5 bomb hits with 250 kilogram bombs, but I would simply say each of this bomb hit make 1 damage value. 1 damage, maybe 1 point. But we make 1 hit with an 800 kilo bomb, and this will normally always make much more damage, like 5, maximum 10 points. 5, I think 5 is the minimum and 10 is the maximum. So, and we start some fire. Okay. And we hit also a little the port. But we don't hit the shipyard. Okay. So, not really a very successful strike. But the problem is maybe the weather. If we have a very strong storm, it's of course very hard to make a really strike here. The weather was against us, but at least there was no enemy fighters, so enemy Dojo have no cap left. He more or less sent all his air forces to Rangoon. This was also, I mean, I tried to lure Dojo's fighters to fight in Rangoon, a fighter against fighter war. At the same time I make the strike on Bombay. I surprised Bombay harbor and sunk his battleship and carrier there and other stuff. Then Dojo had to choose if he keep his fighters in Rangoon or send something to Bombay to protect Bombay. But at the same time I more or less say no, I don't go and attack Bombay again because I expect that Dojo will maybe reinforce the airfield of Bombay and then I lose more airplanes. So I go to Colombo simply because I must return to Singapore and I don't expect much defense in Colombo. And normally there are always also some kind of ships, at least in Colombo. And now we find out that in Colombo is the Prince of Wales. This is the last missing battleship from the start of the war. And if we bring a 800 kilogram bomb on the Prince of Wales, then means maybe everything what Dojo fixed so far is now damaged again. This is the airstrike of a carrier fleet to try to support this invasion of Port Moresby, but this was now an air attack on Port Moresby, and this was more or less an airfield attack and a port attack, not a ground attack. So the meaning was, if there's anything left on the airfield, destroy it. If there's anything left in the port, destroy it. And we can see there's normally no ship, no airframe, nothing. So we hit the runway, we hit the airbase, but there's simply nothing left. Means more or less our battleships maybe already destroy everything before, and now if everything is destroyed what you want destroyed, you cannot destroy something what is already destroyed. Our zero Oscars, but no cap left. So this is a small, only a block force. It's not a fighting force. I have only very low attack value, so I use this to pick up this base nearby. Because it will normally not help much in Ambon to break the Dutch forces there. Dojo still try to bomb us, but now Dojo bombard our invasion forces, and yeah, that is Dojo have some guns, and our units more or less just arrive at the beach, and they have no defense. I think no defense value, so they don't have any fort value, and so they can suffer higher losses at this kind of attack. Navy Guard units are really not the best for this. They normally really the best is if you try to arrive at the beach and then strike immediately, because they are not good for this kind of long stale battle. Yeah. They are not really heavy armor and not army guys. They are light equipped mobile units. So, but now they're fighting against Australian army units. So, and Dojo had enough time maybe to dig in. So it's not easily. I simply don't have enough attack value to get rid of them. So I must maybe bombard them longer and send additional reinforcements in the next days or weeks, if I can find some. Okay, so we arrive now at February 21st, 1942. This was a very active air battle, and also ground and sea battle, at least something. So we can see that the daily air losses was now official 50 losses for Dojo and 27 for Japan. And we also lost 5 for Fleck and 8 to 14 operational losses. So in overall we had 58 to 46. If you see these numbers, and it's a standard turn, you can see high losses for both sides, but compared to the overall war, it's similar, nothing too special. The only problem is if you see this, what really gets killed. So you can see that we lost 22 zeros today, 16 in air-to-air battle and 6 operational losses by damage. And Dojo lost a lot of his light and medium bombers. So these are, I think, medium bombers, these are light bombers. So you can see these are already 34 light bombers or bomber forces. And we also lost 11 Oscars, 10 air-to-air battle and 1 operational losses. So in total, you can see that Japan lost in these 2 days 33 first-class fighters. And Dojo lost in total 11 plus 10, so 21 first-class fighters. 33 to 21 is just acceptable, I would say, but it's really not good. But then again, Dojo lost here some more medium bombers. These are all medium bombers, so 11 more medium bombers dead. We lost 3 dive bombers, all by Fleck. And 2 scout planes, 1 killed by Cap and 1 killed by Fleck. And this is in the typical Chinese stuff here. Operational losses. And we can check if... No. So no B-17 gets destroyed. The 1-0 fighter more or less intercepted the 3 B-17s and he damaged them, but it was not enough to really destroy them. They can return to base and then they are now maintenance, and maybe they need 2-3 days longer to fix the damage, but they'll still be active. But at least Dojo lost the Catalin again. Yeah. So air war was very active and not crazy good. I mean, we get rid of many of these bombers, but Dojo also give the Japanese air forces in Rangoon a not good day. So, and out of this, you can see we have 14 kills pilot and 4 wounded, but 17 are missing in action. And this is normally the bigger issue. Get killed is killed, okay. And this is most of time of defense operation. If we defend maybe our zeros in Java or wherever, or in Bangkok. But the 70 pilots get missing, means the pilots survive normally the action, but because it's enemy territory, we even lost them. And I think this guy, we can check to the base, yeah. In this base, there was an elite pilot. Oh, let's get no good work. But you can see this is the first ace. Is missing now in action. He was here with the 0 pilots and he makes the attack in Rangoon, and somehow some British pig fighter really engaged this high-class samurai fighter, and by some strange accidents our elite ace pilots get defeated. He had already 39 missions. He had an experience of 79. He was nearly official elite pilot. So with 80 you are elite. So he was very close to be elite. Maybe this was the last battle he had to fight. And he had already 5 kills. And now he's missing in action. Pitifully. Good. Ship sunk. Last turn. Official 2 Dutch destroyers. Okay. This is a typical 1,300 ton destroyer. So only light destroyers. Nothing special. Nothing strong. No anti-aircraft. No really anti-submarine stuff. I would say more or less support destroyers or light destroyers. Not really important, but we get rid of them. Because sooner or later, normally the allied player always can upgrade any ship. And they always get radar and much better anti-aircraft and anti-submarine equipment. So even if they start shitty after 1 year and when end of 42 or beginning of 43, you can make out of these destroyers always much more decent ships. So anybody kill them now, what is dead and keep them. Okay. Yeah, only to see here now this squadron, you can see we was at 45, now we are down to 31. So this was really not a good day, and you can see the operational loss is 5, written off 6, and we lost 22 airplanes so far in air-to-air battle. But at the same, on the other side of the coin or token, you can see that this squadron already have 111 kills. So the ratio is still good. But you also can see that the morale normally was at 99, and because of this high losses it drops to 79. So I have to keep all these fighter forces for 1 or 2 turns now in training and stand by and stand down to recover morale and reduce the fatigue. And because all of these fighter forces, they all 3rd air group, and they stay here with the 3rd air group, so this leader will more or less help to increase our morale and to reduce the fatigue, so that our forces are very quickly can recover normally and be ready for action again. Yeah. And here still the army is walking, so it is very, very slow. So don't expect too much. 2 weeks, 3 weeks later we pass the mountains, but this will be very, very slow. Here's the AMC, so a local minesweeper, nothing important. Here we can see a tanker and a light cargo ship. And this is a unit just get here recon, because we have the 5 float planes. So I always use this jack float planes with maximum, let's say commander decide where he fly, because this is too complicated. You must always normally change it depending on where you are just now with your task force. So I say this is too complicated. I only say fly everywhere, fly at 6,000 and go maximum 8, because 8 is normal radius. I don't want to go extended radius. And because I have here 3 airplanes but 4 pilots, so the fatigue will normally not be so high, because 1 pilot always can rest. And this is one group, and this is the other group. Here you have 2 airplanes for 3, but the same setup. And because we have here 2 heavy cruisers and some support destroyers, I will try to intercept the tanker, maybe get rid of the tanker. And you can also see that this task force also have a vice admiral. So there's always a leader, an admiral, to lead the force. And then you have this captains, the commander of the ship. Here's our task forces. You can see this is a heavy cruisers, light cruiser formation, and the carrier formation. And I think I will go now in a position like this, 6 hexes southeast of Colombo, and then I will attack again. Because there's normally not many fighters left. I only see here bombers. And if I stay 6 hexes away, then he normally cannot attack me. At the same time, I have here my oilers. So I will bring the oilers in to refuel every task force. I can split this up and make 1 oiler for every task force to join the task force or to refuel the task force. And here's a battleship formation. I will normally keep them here to make sure that I have enough support power. And here's one more battleship fleet. Just go here to pick up the spaces. Because if I show up here, maybe Dojo run his task forces here to the small island. So I have also a submarine here. And so I won't check the spaces, and maybe if he try to hide here something, I can pick it up. Yeah. Here is nothing special. We won this base. And luckily we take all the resources without any damage. So we have 1 more base produce resources for us. Okay. And this is here is our air HQ. The 11th Air Fleet, and you can see this is the Air Fleet. So this is for the German army, this is a Luftflotte. So this is also a Luftflotte. This is 11th Luftflotte because the radio is 5. So this is a really overall Air Fleet commander, not only an Air Wing commander. And these are the 3 squadrons. They're making here cap. And you can see that their skill is 69, 71, 71. So these pilots have very high experience, and there are some new guys. They don't have so much experience that they try to catch up. Okie dokie. And here's this is only this what I mean, the block forces with the attack of 15. This is normally I use this kind of forces to take this undefended stuff. And here again the same. 15. Nothing enough to really fight anything, but enough to pick up bases. And here in Port Moresby, this is really, now I realize, before I get information or I read it wrong, I thought here's much less. But the Dojo have here over 10,000 guys with over 100 guns, and I have only 3,500 guys. I mean, I have here some support guys, but they cannot fight. So I have 3,500 guys can fight, and Dojo have maybe here 7,000 guys. So he have double the number. So this will not work. I must bring here more stuff, or I must bomb here many days. Okay. Yeah, more action we not had anywhere. No. And China is only still there. We catch up here with his forces, so next time we can battle here. We catch here up, so we can battle here. This forces run away. We arrive in Yan'an, so next time we can take the base of Yan'an. Okay. And here is still all on the way. Good. I think this is first enough for today. At the 1st of March I will make a special episode again about the situation with more background information, and so far I keep it a little short, but always spot the most important bases and activities here we had on the map. Thank you all, see you again, take care, bye bye.